All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Aloha. Thank you for being here in this afternoon session of Hawaii Farmers Union United 11th Annual Convention. We're convening here, all of our chapter presidents, along with Senator Gabbard, convening here this weekend at Haleakua Retreat Center here in Hawai'i, Maui. And it's just been a wonderful place to work out of and to be able to all come together physically as producers. And the conversations have been so rich. And we really appreciate it to have this time together, because we don't normally do, especially with the pandemic. We normally haven't had this time to be together and to just share all of the unique experiences that we go through in our agricultural regions. So with that said, we're in the home stretch of our video presentations. Today, we're going to be showing our food hub video that was just done, along with a focus on adaptations and marine data, and then a cover crop video that will lead into our soil health initiative that we're bringing forward statewide. So stay with us. If you have any questions along the way, put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and appreciate you being here. So roll them. Great.
Oh, please try to file. Hang on one sec. We're getting there, folks.
Okay, it's all good.
I'm saying I didn't like file resolution, but we'll see.
I like the ghosting that's going around my head here. It looks like I have an aura.
You just wish it was real.
Yeah.
We may start with Maureen's then. It's saying it wants a different file. So Katie, can you start streaming the food hub? It's saying it's exceeding the file.
Yeah, sure.
In Hawaii, 10% of the produce that we eat is grown locally, and currently we bring in 90% of our food from outside the state. That's what food hubs are now doing. They're connecting the dots, and then something new that we're discovering along the way is that there's much more food growing here than we thought. We're just utilizing it instead of letting it go to waste.
This last year, it became really apparent to us during COVID, if we got cut off, what it would be like to be on this island and not have access to food. We became really aware how important our local farmers were.
When COVID hit, our food supply chains were interrupted, but the farmers here in Hawaii were ready to step in. Aloha, I'm Maureen Dada, and I run Adaptations Food Hub and Organic Farm in Pono now. What our food hub provides is an alternative to the mainstream conventional agriculture system. By providing infrastructure, farmers, they can come and just drop off their product with a one-stop drop and not have to spend time away from the farm, which is really their heart and soul and what they want to be doing with their lives. We started with Adaptations Farm, and then the food hub grew out of necessity for getting those products to market. In order to help pay for that infrastructure, we started to HFUU with other farms. We tried to have more than one grower for each crop so that we could have a consistent supply, because a lot of the original pushback was that local growers were inconsistent, and it made a huge difference in just building our reputation over time that we were able to come through with what we promised. Farming is really a risky business. There's a lot that can go wrong between seed and harvest. So anything that we can do to mitigate that risk and help support the farmer in their mission is part of our mission.
Probably the best thing for farmers is that they can sell us large quantities, and that makes it easier for them. They don't have to go and look for customers. We do all the legwork, talking to the chefs, finding out what they need, and then we go specifically to different farmers and say, we need this much of this and this much of this, and the farmer just gets our call instead of 20 calls We place an order with the farmer delivers to us, and then we take the time to portion it out and ship it out and deliver it to all those different locations.
We're helping with crop selection, seed sourcing, pest management, disease management. We can advise on seasonality. That helps give them a little leg up so they know what to expect in their climate zone with that crop. We're providing consistency to the grower. They know what to expect. They know there's going to be a minimum demand for their crops. They know they're going to get paid twice a month without fail. They're able to move forward with confidence to plant more because they know a set amount is already spoken for. One of the things I've found for growers is a concern for maintaining their market share. If they're going directly to a customer and then they have a tragedy of rain or other natural event or something else disrupts their production cycle, they might lose that shelf space. By having a food hub that they work with, the food hub can source from a couple of other growers to maintain that shelf space so that when they do get back online, it's still there for them.
I'd completely recommend any farmers working with food hubs. It's a win-win on both sides. Being connected with the food hub allows me to focus much more on growing the crops. I don't have to scramble around looking for as many customers because I can send a lot of my product right to them. They have a lot of really consistent customers with consistent demand, and so I know that a good chunk of my crop is going to be bought. I don't have to worry about where it's going to go.
We bring in at least a pallet a week from adaptations, whatever they have in stock. We always love the heirloom tomatoes. We get a lot of citrus. That's really the beauty of like these hubs that are working together is that, now not only do we have access to the farmers that we support, but we also have access to all of the farmers that those hubs support. My name is Christian Zuckerman. I'm the farm manager and director of social ventures at Kahumana. As far as like the food hub, we have a couple different aspects within it. We have a very vibrant CSA program. We have about 400 members that we serve weekly. We have the farm hub, which is the aggregating arm of the hub. So we work with 100 farmers here in Oahu. We bring in produce from Hawai'i, Maui, Big Island. A lot of the B-grade produce that we normally couldn't sell, but we don't want to go to waste. We actually pay the farmer for that so that we can take that, capture it, and make it into a new product.
My name is Saleh Azizi. I work as the Community Development Coordinator at Kahumana, and I was hired about 4 years ago to start our food hub. The way the food hub came about was that we actually, as an organic farm, were pretty successful in marketing our produce. So we had over 40 to 50 various wholesale accounts set up with restaurants and stores. The question came naturally from some of our surrounding farmers was, can I utilize your marketing channels to sell my lemons, for example?
We wanted to provide an economic stimulus to our community in the form of money to those backyard growers, those small farmers who need it the most, but also to make us less reliant on food being imported to Hawaii. For every pound that we aggregate from local farmers or from backyard growers here in Waianae, that's one less pound of food that needs to come from the mainland.
In the first year, our Ohana growers out here with Kahumana Food Hub produced about 100,000 pounds that we helped move to the marketplace. When we interviewed people, it turned out that a lot of this was going to waste in people's backyards. So a lot of it wasn't making it to the market, close to 90% of that. So it's really saving a lot of waste from happening, but also creating income for people that need a source of income. The first year, close to $100,000 went directly back to the community. And it's really about the community. It was about meeting the community where it's at. The food was growing, partly because people believed in growing food, because their culture and history promoted them to grow food. And that's why it's kind of a beautiful thing, I think. Then when COVID happened, we went from maybe 100 farmers to 200 farmers. So now we move about 700,000 pounds of produce per year. Twice a week, our food hub is open. It's open for receiving. Any food producer from around the island can come and see us, can talk story with us, talk about where they have their land, where they grow their food, what they expect to have in harvest so we can help them sell that. The purpose of it was to create very low barriers to entry. Anyone is welcome.
Whether you're a farmer who's growing like in the back of your yard, a small little plot, versus like a medium scale farmer or a large scale farmer, I think having access to a food hub in any of those scenarios is going to be beneficial. Say like a small backyard grower, you're not going to have the infrastructure, you're not going to have the connections, you're not going to have the facilities, the storage, any of these things in place, but a food hub can provide that for you. A lot of medium scale farmers, they're sort of caught in this catch-22, right? They're not big enough to invest all this into, infrastructure. They're big enough at the same time where they need to like get more out there. So, sort of like I said, catch-22 is like, okay, I need to invest in infrastructure, don't have the money to, but need to. And so that's why the food hub can come in, provide that for them. It's like, hey, we have it, we'll give you a good price. We understand, especially like our food hub, we have a farm also, so we understand the trials and tribulations that it is to be a farmer.
The growers that participate with us, they receive basically 70 cents out of every dollar that we make. In conventional food systems, the growers receive about 10 cents out of every dollar that someone spends in the grocery store. So we want to completely change that. We want to turn around the pyramid so that the farmers can really benefit.
I've been working with Kaumana and the Food Hub for, I think now about 3 years. I'm a one-man farmer. When it comes to marketing all these different items, that's like trying to start another business. Farming is just one part of the whole aspect. Taking that vegetable and creating money out of it takes a whole nother talent. And if you have to do both, that takes a lot of time out of farming. And most farmers nowadays, that's what they're faced with. Yeah. What Kaumana provides for me is the market, yeah, and a market that I can deal with at a fair price.
So in the second year of running the food hub at Kaumana, one of the things that I did in my role was to create a focus group among the food hubs where we came together and talked about our common needs and how we can achieve our goals for our farmers and for Hawaii's food system. We continue to run that group today. We call ourselves the Hawaii Food Hub Hui, and we have about 15 food hub members in the Hui. What naturally happened is some people started training with one another. We started exchanging customers, exchanging suppliers. We started buying from one another. And that was really our big vehicle when COVID hit. It was all of those connections that we had made in the Food Hub Hui that empowered us to create an inter-island network of food hubs that responded to the pandemic.
COVID gave us a moment to shine in a way. It was a proof of concept. It really showed how resilient our local food system is. The Hui itself, getting together, is a force that is going to move us into the future and provide food security for Hawaii.
Sort of the silver lining of the pandemic is that it's really made people think about where their food comes from. People have realized the value of supporting farmers, not just in the sense of the whole like circular economy question, but just that, first off, it just tastes better. It feels good to like support your farmer. And I know for us, it's felt a lot better to be able to serve our community, whether it's through CSA, food distributions, farmers markets, than a lot of our clientele from the past, because we used to primarily send to high-end restaurants, hotels, and we sort of moved into this more direct-to-consumer model.
There's great support that you can provide for food hubs. Number one is really awareness about what food hubs are and what they're doing. Awareness from the producers so they know they have food hubs in their community, but also other people like the state of Hawaii, like the Department of Education, awareness that we exist, awareness about what we're trying to build. Once you have some awareness, it would be beautiful if people actually invested in the food hubs. So far, most of the food hubs have made it to where they are without significant outside investment. For the food hubs to grow, we need roughly $30 million. If people want to help us raise that money and help us strengthen the food hubs in Hawaii.
I could put that in the end, that's good. You're gonna go right in the next video?
You're alive right now. Oh, say something.
I'm charging my.
Oh. So you guys can hear us. We're gonna start the next video here for you.
Question on the food hubs. That's Oahu. What's happening on the neighbor islands?
That was.
Oh, that's both.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We have 14 food hubs as part of this group representing every island.
Great, wonderful.
Is Hawaii part of that? Yeah, that's.
Sustainable.
You wanna introduce events a little bit here?
Yeah, so this next video, the next video we're gonna see is marine data of adaptations. And she's also our state secretary, former president of the Kona chapter. And this way she gives everybody an overview of her business there at Adaptations and the farm. So take it away, Katie. Marine's a rock star.
Yeah, okay. Okay, it's working from here, so. Okay, we're gonna.
Tane originally bought the land back in 1979 as a homestead, a means of getting away from the world and being able to subsist on his own. And so he found this parcel in South Kona, and it was very wild. It needed a lot of change to make it agriculturally viable. He was building the house, planting the orchards. 1990, I came to Hawaii to study Lomi Lomi massage with Auntie Margaret Machado at KA Beach. I arrived a week early before massage school, and I was staying with a friend of mine up at Shiganji Mission with Mickey McCoy. And so she had the habit of coming up to the farm once a week and working with the plants with Tane. And so I was in the vehicle that was driving her up to drop her off. And when I saw the place, I thought, wow, this looks really magical. This looks like a cool spot. And then I met Tane and I thought, oh, that's something I haven't seen before. You know, Tane was really charismatic and he was very excited about what he was doing on the farm and really liked the plant-person connection. And that was very attractive. So I got off the vehicle and said, hey, can you use some extra help today? And so he hired me for $5 an hour. And we ended up spending the rest of the day working on plants together and weeding and talking about land in Hawaii, how hard it is to make a living here and how to keep land in production and agriculture. And he had chosen this spot to be his place to make his stand, you know, to build a life. And that's something that I was also looking for at that time, like a place to put my energy and see it come back to me. He was explaining that one of his visions for the business was to allow farmers to be able to make their living from their land and let go of the day job and have farming be the day job. So that was the conversation we had pretty much all day long. I fell in love with the concept, I fell in love with him, I fell in love with the place. Initially, when I first moved onto the farm with Tane, he had two friends he was working with, Cab Baber and Harvey Sakharov. They were growing herbs mostly for a couple of accounts up the coast. There weren't really all the resorts that are there now, hadn't been built yet. We would call and get orders on Sunday night and then wake up Monday morning and harvest and go down to Cab's farm, and he would be harvesting, and then Harvey would arrive with his harvest, and then we would pack out our orders, get them in the back of the truck and drive straight up to deliver really early in the morning so that it would still be cool. We didn't have any refrigeration. We just, you know, based on speed, getting it from the field to to the destination, to the customer, and then relied on their refrigeration, basically. So we started to need the infrastructure. We bought a Toyota van, a minivan with rear air conditioning. This was state of the art at the time. And so by setting up the infrastructure, then we needed more product to move through it to make it work. We started reaching out to other friends in different climate areas and said, hey, you know, you're at a great elevation for this crop. We can't really grow it because it's too wet where we are. Would you grow this for us? And then we met with Peter Merriman about the Hawaii Regional Cuisine Group, and he was forming this kind of group of a dozen chefs, top chefs from across the state. And he invited us to kind of be the agricultural consultants. What he needed to teach the other chefs, or what all the chefs that were in that group wanted to know, was, you know, how do we support farmers in growing for us? What do they need? You know, what does a farmer need to be successful so that we can get fresh product? And so we worked really closely with them to explain, you know, a farmer needs to know that if they drop seed now and it comes to ready to harvest in 6 weeks, that it's going to be sold still. You know, don't tell us to drop seed now and then 6 weeks from now you changed your menu and you no longer need it. So we need consistency and reliability. And they said, that's funny, that's what we need from farmers too. If we put something on the menu, we want to know that we're going to have it. And especially if we have your name on the menu, it's important that you come through for us. So reliability, consistency, those were big buzzwords in the beginning. And we realized that the only way to really provide that was to have multiple sources for the same item. So each item had to have at least 2 growers for it. So that's been sort of a model that we grew on to begin with. We learned a lot from the Hawaii Regional Cuisine chefs as well, because they were willing to bring us into the walk-ins and say, this is what we're bringing in from the mainland. This is how they're packaging it. The weight of the box is more than the product inside. We're paying for cardboard to be shipped here. It's really costly and it's not fresh. And so can you duplicate this for us? And instead of giving it to us in a 2-pound box, bring it to us in a 5-pound box. And that way the cost per pound of packaging goes down. So we learned a lot, we shared a lot of information, and it was, you know, in the spirit of wanting to be successful and also support each other. You know, they wanted fresh product. We wanted to make a living farming, and that really is the support that we needed to do that. The reason that we're growing microgreens now is because of a chef who came to Four Seasons Hawai'i. Her name is Megan, and she was from Texas. Her signature thing was microgreens. We had never even heard of microgreens, but she was importing them from Chef's Garden in Ohio, and the FedEx was not acceptable to the resort. The cost was too much, and they said, if you want to continue to use this product, you're going to have to find it locally. So Megan came and toured our farm and pointed to the seedling trays that we were ready to set out, and said, this is what I want, this big. And we just thought it was a lark. We thought she was 1 in a million, you know, and it turned out to be a trend. So that's when we shifted into growing a lot of microgreens and edible flowers. And you know, these high-end crops, at first it felt wrong to be growing fufu garnish instead of real food for real people, but it helped us pay the bills and it helped us employ people and grow. And so, you know, we had to come to terms with that. It was, you know, a little tricky, but feeling okay with that. Because of that income, then we were able to expand. And now we can ask folks to grow commodity crops and be able to, you know, give them a standing order and guarantee, like, hey, if you drop the seed for us, we will buy it and we'll pay you every 2 weeks without fail. Now our network is over 170 farmers every year that we work with. And weekly, it's about 70. We work with about 70 farmers on average. So, you know, when I cut checks twice a month, I'm looking at the stack of checks, it's 70 to 75 checks. That's all community-based. When I look at the addresses, you know, it's all local. It all goes in the local mail slot. A food hub is aggregating produce and then handling everything from the farm gate onward toward the customer. So the farmer can turn around and go right back to what they were doing. They can go pick up their amendments and get back to the farm and take care of whatever is pressing there, and allow us to then take it from that state to getting it to the customer. So that involves marketing, maintaining those relationships, making promises, keeping promises, getting the produce to the customer in a timely way on a regular schedule. Once you've done the delivery, it doesn't end. You then have to make sure that you collect on that invoice, make sure that you get paid. Any corrections that were made get changed. It's a lot of paperwork. It's not something that every, 70 farmers want to be doing, right? 70 farmers would rather drop off at a site and have our entity deal with the accounting and the liability insurance, and all kinds of pressures that farmers would feel and have barriers to their market, is solved by a food hub. A food hub goes to the expense, they pay for the infrastructure, and then everybody benefits. So it's a traditional business model. We're an S corporation. We're not a cooperative, but we work cooperatively, and we have that goal of community building. The Fresh Feast CSA that we run is unique nationally because it's year-round. It's multi-farmer. So we consolidate harvests from 70 farms, and then we offer it out to about 125 families pre-COVID. And then March 2020 rolls around, and all of our wholesale customers shut down in the period of about 7 to 10 days. We had 86 customers, and then it went to 6. Losing so many customers right away like that all at once was pretty terrifying because I feel that weight of responsibility to farmers, but also to our employees, wanting to keep them employed, wanting to move forward in the face of not really knowing what to expect. There was so much uncertainty and not really being confident in knowing that we were going to get through it. It was a really frightening time because it was unknown. That was kind of a panic moment for me when I saw all these resorts shutting down, and I thought, what's going to happen with my farmers? I want them to continue to be able to sell the crops that they have in the ground for us. What am I going to do? And fortunately, the CSA was a solution. People wanted contactless food delivery. And so the CSA model was already right there. It was picking up a box at a CSA location with no contact. So it was a really good solution that was right there in place. And we had been already operating for 12 years that way. So we knew the nature of the beast and how to manage it. What we weren't quite prepared for was that the CSA would explode to 450 families in the course of just 4 weeks or so. We weren't prepared for that, but we were also thrilled to have a market avenue for all this food and to keep our staff employed. Pre-COVID, our sales were about 80% wholesale and 20% retail. And then once COVID struck, we shifted to about 65% of our business was CSA. And that was interesting to have that be the majority of our sales was direct to the consumer. It felt good to supply Kama'aina, and that was sort of a dream come true for us. Yeah. We've been operating at the site where we are now for over 25 years, and we just recently purchased our own building in Kealakekua around the corner. So that will give us 4 times the space, and it'll help us integrate our mission all in one site. This food hub HFUU is what I see the future of agriculture to be in Hawaii. What I would love to see and what our purpose is to manifest a food hub in each region across the state, and then each individual hub can broadcast what they have abundance of. I find like our food hub has really had to go through adaptations in order to thrive and survive in an uncertain climate. It's demonstrated resiliency for our business, but also for our community. And I think it's a model for how we will get by.
I know, of course, with both of our heads Monday. And cue the music.
Yep, that just came out of my mouth.
Okay, wow, that was good fun. And Maureen, you know, I hope you all saw that, you know, we will get by, and then Jerry Garcia and Grateful Dead playing, and she picked up on it. So I thought that was pretty cool. We all did, actually. So our next video, and really well done, Saleh and Mo and Christian. Really good job what you folks are doing, connecting all of our Food Hub network. Yeah. So our next video is speaking to the other side of the coin that produces all the food that gets to these hubs. And we're going to be showing two films, one on cover crops that was taken at in Kohala and Waiana, two different farms featuring cover crops. And then we're going to move on to our soil health initiative video to close out the convention video series here. So enjoy the next two videos, folks. We'll be back at you with questions.
Yeah, Katie, can you play this one too? It's not gonna work over here.
Sure.
Thank you. Amazing. Live tech support.
Cover cropping is just a really amazing way that small family farms can improve soil fertility, increase nitrogen, improve soil health and organic matter in a low-cost way. It's a way that you can grow your on-site fertilizer. You're growing your own fertilizer.
Cover cropping is essentially, it's a crop that you plant that's not your cash crop. So you can plant it before or after. There are a lot of different benefits that cover crops provide. There are the obvious ones, like you're covering the soil, you're preventing erosion from wind and sun. But then there are some of the less obvious ones. You're bringing in a lot of species diversity, you're adding organic matter to the soil. My name is Jamie Barton. I run Healthy Soils Hawai'i, which is an agricultural consulting business. We work with farmers and ranchers in Hawaii to help them implement soil health practices and climate smart practices. Generally, when I'm working with farmers, I ask them what is their primary objective. We try to identify what that is, and then from there, we determine what type of cover crop species we want to use.
We've been implementing cover cropping here on this farm so that we can actively improve, restore, regenerate the soil. My name is Dashel Kerr. I'm a co-founder and executive director for Hawaii Institute of Pacific Agriculture. We're here on our farm up in North Kohala. We have a 26-acre site, and we're starting to develop new gardens at the site. We did some soil testing recently, and we found out that there's a lot of improvement that we can do. We like to plant cowpeas, buckwheat. We do Sudan grass. We do a crotalaria, which is sometimes marketed as sun hemp. And we've experimented a little bit with a New Zealand clover. You know, in terms of favorites, I mean, they're all really good candidates, and they do different things. The cowpeas are great for nitrogen fixing. The crotalaria is great for nitrogen fixing and nematode suppression. The Sudan grass would be a crop that we use more for biomass. And then the buckwheat we really like because it adds a little bit of potassium into the soils. So we're here at the Hip Agriculture Farm. Really thrilled how this block came out. We were already wanting to improve the soil fertility of this area. These are new field blocks that we're prepping for future production. And one of the best ways we can do that is running some nitrogen fixing cover crops and some biomass crops. We did cowpeas, crotalaria, buckwheat, and Sudan grass. I'm getting excited to mow this down and incorporate it, and then we'll be able to put out our crop and get some really nice food out of here. Well, we just pulled out this crotalaria, also known as sun hemp, and I'm really pleased to see that it's filled with nitrogen fixing bacteria nodules, these kind of pinkish clusters. Those are clusters of bacteria that are actually sequestering nitrogen out of the atmosphere and putting it into the soil. We also like to grow a lot of crotalaria in our agroforestry polyculture fields. We use the crotalaria kind of as a nurse crop or a pioneer species that helps us improve the fertility of the soil by fixing nitrogen, creating biomass, creating more carbon for the system to feed that soil food web and help to lean it towards a more fungal dominant soil that's going to support our long-term tree species. But this whole tree, this whole shrub, see if I can get a little better angle there, can turn actually into, and these crack really nicely too. It's kind of cool. You can just kind of even use your hands to break this material up. And what I like to do is turn this into what I call kind of like fertilizer packets, right? And we can just kind of, get this mulch together. And this turns into a nice packet of nitrogen and carbon that I can then directly come up to a climax species that I want to grow better, like this ava or this guayusa. And I can actually feed this into the soil here. And if you notice underneath these trees, they got a lot of really great leaf litter and debris, and it's like there's an active composting happening underneath each plant here. So this is a great way we can chop and drop our nitrogen fixing plants and turn them into food for the plants that we want to grow.
Soil health is so connected to what we put into it, and having cover crops that are just growing in place rather than us having to bring something to add to our soils. This makes complete sense. My name is Christian Zuckerman. I'm the farm manager and director of social ventures at Kahumana. Since I've been working at Kahumana since about 9 years ago, we've been consistently doing the cover crop. We just planted our avocado orchard at the end of May. The plan as we sort of slowly progress through the orchard is to start putting in alley cropping in between the rows of avocados.
Right behind me is our newest orchard production here. We have 50 avocado trees, pallets set up for a windbreak. We have a lot of space in between, the spacing of 30 foot on center. So we are implementing what we call alley cropping, or essentially trying to cultivate the space in between while we have time for it to be open and used. We put in our first alley crop over here, which is a short-term cover crop of sun hemp, buckwheat, Sudan grass, essentially trying to create organic matter and soil fertility. And then once it's at its full growth, we are going to mow it down, till it into the soil, and create better soil health.
If you're a farmer who's never cover cropped and are interested in cover cropping, I think there's a few things that you need to do before you actually dive into it. Assess, why are you cover cropping? Are you trying to address a soil health issue? Are you trying to address an erosion issue? Are you trying to address a fertility or, like a fallow situation? Because each one of those different scenarios is going to provide you with a whole different sort of avenue of cover cropping that you can go down.
If you want to get some cover crop going, it's really easy. You can buy some cover crop seed, and then you're going to prep your area, whether you open it by hand with pickaxes or a small tiller, or hopefully you have a spader that's going to not damage the soil structure not create compaction. And then you're going to sow your cover crop seed. You're going to make sure it gets adequately watered. And then that seed will pop and you can let it grow up. Once the cover crop grows, you have options of how you want to incorporate it into the soil. And depending on the farmer or the grower, there's different options. Some growers like to incorporate that cover crop when it's green and young and supple and has its peak nitrogen. Other farmers are really hot right now on adding more carbon into the soil for the soil food web. So they'll let that cover crop come to full maturity and then they'll mow that down and either incorporate that or leave it on the soil surface level. Another option might be to, if you have a roller crimper, is that you can actually roll and crimp and damage the cover crops so it won't regrow, and then you can directly plant seedlings into that cover crop and use it as kind of a living mulch.
Building soil health does take time. It's not something that you're going to see in a single crop cycle or a single season. It's something you really have to put work into, but it's worth it because you end up seeing reduced disease pressure, pest pressure. Healthier soil ends up creating this condition where you can grow a healthier crop. You're growing more nutritious food. More nutritious food is obviously better for people.
There's a lot of incredible work happening right now to develop local seed industry in Hawaii. And I think we have a huge opportunity and potential to become a leader in the nation for high quality cover crop seed because of our year-round growing climate. It's really my hope that, you know, some of these bigger tracts of land that were in genetically modified corn and seed corn convert into growing cover crop that we can use in state and also share with the nation.
Hawaii has limited land, and so we're always going to face this challenge of, you know, can it be done somewhere else more cheaply? Because there's economies of scale, there's cheaper land, water, labor. So the cover crop seed industry here would have to overcome some of those barriers and be able to produce cover crop seed cheaply enough that it could compete with what's being brought in.
And I think at the end of the day, it might be a great opportunity. There's a huge amount of land that's fallow, state ag lands that aren't being used. So, you know, if we could turn that into doing cover crop seed growing, that'd be great.
The recent statistics coming out of the Seed Expo this last year are just horrifying. The stat is that within the next 60 years, we'll have utilized all of the topsoil on Earth at our current burn rate. It's essential that humans learn how to regenerate the soil. We cannot continue at this pace. We're starting to face some real ecological limits in our ability to produce food for the amount of humans on the planet. Use cover cropping as a tool, whether it's in your backyard, on your farm, in your orchard, to improve the soil for future generations so that we leave them, you know, a Garden of Eden, not a desert.
I would encourage any farmer that's interested in experimenting with cover crops to give them a try. There are a lot of resources out there that can support you, from the Natural Resource Conservation Service to folks like HFUU. So definitely check in with some of those guys if you're interested in implementing those types of practices on your farm.
Okay, am I on?
You got bigger videos. Your mic's live.
Mike's live. All right, there we go. All right, wow, that was inspiring, and this leads on to our next video, which will close out our video series. So get your questions ready, put them in the chat. This last video is basically a coming together of some of our soil health initiative group that has been meeting for the past 7 months here across the state. We've had the agricultural sector at the table, the legislature at the table, and the private sector there to discuss and be on the same page about the value of soil health. So this is an ongoing initiative, and we just wanted to create this video to show folks in the public what's happening, and as we move forward, what we aspire to. So enjoy. statewide initiative to look at soil health protocols and how they can better agriculture moving forward. We're going to go to a demonstration site to view the soils of existing soils that are at this site. And then we're going to come back to the boardroom. We're going to sit around the round table and discuss what we've seen. And then we're going to go out to a farm where we're going to look to implement some of these soil health practices in moving the soil health initiative forward. So we're here at Mahi Pono on site 1 of a multi-site visit for potential soil health protocols we're going to bring forward. We're here at site 2 of a potential site demonstration for the soil health initiative. Being back here after visiting a couple of potential sites and talking with our fellow initiative folks here, I feel that it's given me a lot more questions than answers. And so that's a good thing, in the spirit that now I can feel as though there's more to address that needs to being addressed. What I'm mainly concerned about would be that I don't want to saw sawdust. I don't want to get so analytical about things that we don't move forward in this initiative. And so my takeaway today is that it's really important that the relationships that we're building here, really appreciate Mahi Pono coming forward and holding space for this today. And also the fact that I'm heartened that we have soil health experts here that we can then address some of the things that we're looking to bring forward with this initiative.
I'm just delighted because I didn't know what kind of partnership we would have with Mahi Pono. And you are all just wonderful at opening up this opportunity and letting the team lead. And I'm very hopeful. I think that we have a chance to really make a difference in the way we can present soil health, both to the community, hopefully to the legislature and the government and the private sector. So right now, I think it's a challenge to put together something that makes a difference, that we can handle, and we can really move forward with this. So I'm very hopeful.
Really grateful to be here, and especially grateful for the partners at the table. I think, like Vincent said, conservation is really about relationships. It's relationships with each other, our relationships with the producer, and relationship with the land. And like Vincent, also, I did walk away with more questions. But I think that's a good thing because it allows us to take a comprehensive look at really where the group is headed, refer back to our why, that vision, that mission, and our strategic goals, and really figure out what success looks like for the group. Because this isn't just about today, but it's about tomorrow, it's about future generations. And we've talked about that, right? And the importance that soil health plays for future generations in producing good quality, nutrient-rich food, but also using our resources wisely. And I think that's really, for me, a great opportunity to work with Jason, Mahi Pono team, and all the great scientists here that you're all going to bring to the table, and we'll figure out how to step forward and really develop what this means to the community, not only for producers from an economical, environmental stance, however you want to look at it, but also what it means to the community and the long-term impacts there. So just grateful to be here.
I've been working in soil health for quite a while now, and I've seen bits and pieces. Some cover crops here, some compost and mulch over here, different trials, but I think this group and the partners that are here, we have the potential to take it to the next step to build what we call a soil health management system. So that long-term focus on making those soils resilient, making them productive for a long time to come. So that's the future generations that will benefit. And then, yes, all the different kind of, like Travis said, the different components, the community, the producers, but really, as a soil scientist, helping other people understand how important soil is. And that's the missing link. That's why we've had kind of a patchwork of, adoption, but we need, just a push to get that wide scale adoption. I think Mahi Pono is, going to be a great partner for that because you guys are visible, and the fact that you're willing to work with us. And I think this is just one of many opportunities, I hope, for this group to push things forward.
I work with a lot of producers on a daily basis. Some, very open to soil health. Some you gotta convince them to do it. So I think with a project like this, an initiative like this, it gives it more visibility for some of those people that are a little more resistant to change, and just being able to use, the successes of this project and being able to show more people that it really works and it can be economically successful for them in the long run.
And my takeaway is that I'm just honored to be amongst all the soil experts here. We've heard it ad nauseum that Hawaii imports 85 to 90% of our food at a cost of $3 billion every year. So when we talk about growing our food here, soil health is an integral part of doing that. I'd also like to make the point that it's one of the things that we always talk about, but this is a good example of, and that is Mahi Pono, the private sector working with government together to tackle a very difficult issue. And so I'm just happy to be here today. Thank you.
I think it's, we have an opportunity to provide support and resources to the group so that this project can, have the best possibility for success. And at the same time, I think it's important that we're not driving the project. I think it's easy, we went out today, we looked at a few sites, and all of us that are concerned with soil health are like doctors in a sense. So it's easy for us to look at like, well, what we do to fix this problem and this problem and this problem. And it's important that, we're not here to fix Mahi Pono's problems, but we're here to support this project. And at the same time, we're really lucky because whatever happens, we're going to learn a lot from it, and we are going to fix some of our problems and hopefully leave this project with healthier soils and better fertility.
Thank you, Vince and Travis, for getting this group together and getting everybody here. We've been talking for several months now, but this is the first time I think we've all been in the same room together, and I actually got to go out into the field and take a look at some of the inventory here. But I think it's important to reiterate what Darren said and what you said earlier about we're not here to lead, we're here to support and be a member of the project. So, it's not so much what Mahi Pono wants, what Mahi Pono needs, but how we can help this thing become a reality, because there are a lot of naysayers out there who don't think a group like this can get this thing done. But I think that there's power in the fact that this group is broad. It represents almost every sector of government and the private industry that's involved in soil activity. And so if we can do this properly, it can be a driver for what Hawaii needs.
I'm actually pretty excited about being part of this team. I'm a diversified farmer here in Maui, and I'm particularly interested in participating in this project as a seed producer. I would love to provide seed for all the core crops needs for Hawaii. I believe in crop health. I believe in cover crops, and I believe it's in Hawaii's best interest to have an industry, local industry, that can supply with the seeds that we need in this particular environment. So I'm very excited about meeting you all after hours of Zoom meetings, and thank you guys for hosting this.
I'm really excited about this project and passionate about it because this is really kind of, I think, like where the rubber hits the road or whatever of some big goals that the state has. And we have really huge goals for local food production, really huge goals for climate change. And those two things are, climate change mitigation. Those two things are intrinsically connected, and they're connected by soil. And so I think the work that we're doing here is really important, and I'm excited that everybody's here together doing this and that we have a great partner to help support some of the work we're doing. So I'm excited to see what our next steps are and what this project is going to look like, and happy to be part of it.
I came away from the site today
feeling anxious to work with you on this project because of what I saw. I think that I look at fields and identify the problems first, and I look, and if I can see, roughly what the problems are, then I know I can help a farm. And I think this group, through focus on soil health, can clearly help these soils. This couldn't have happened 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago. It couldn't have happened. We were interested in soil health, a group of us. We started to do conferences, but we could not sit at a table. We would not have the participants 10 years ago and 20 years ago to do this. And so I think it's a huge moment. And not only does it take the soil having a need, but it takes people who will cooperate. And so thank you. And thank you for letting me be with this team. I have the farmer's disease. I work alone all the time. So this is really, and college didn't work for me. And so this is really exciting to work with a group of people focused on soil health.
Thank you, Darren and Jason, for your hospitality. Thank you, Vince, for the invitation to join. I've been listening and writing and just observing, and mainly what I've observed today, beyond soil and citrus trees and what we've been shown by our hosts is a lot of open-mindedness and a lot of creativity. Like it's been said already around the table, this is a complex issue, soil health, and how it's attached to larger existential crises, food security, and climate change. So I just wanted to state that if it's not already apparent, just as sort of an outsider and someone who's new to the group, just watching the conversations happen, that's what I've seen is a lot of open-mindedness, a lot of creativity, a lot of willingness to listen and to flow with ideas from one person's perspective to the next, and that I imagine is critical to bringing together, an organization like Mahi Pono and individuals with such a diverse background. So thank you for having me here.
So if I can kind of wrap up this discussion, for me, as the saying goes, we're running out of time, yet we have all the time we need. And this collective, the Soil Health Initiative, will either hold itself up or take itself down. And it's my hope, and I think that's where we've been successful, is that this methodical movement forward has had the agreement of the collective. So we're building a consensus along the way. I'm hoping that it's a consensus. I'm hoping that truly we respect what's happening together enough to want to go to the next step. And then we'll see what that next step is. When it's brought to my attention about, what are we going to do? Well, it'll be evident after we get done today. We're going to decide whether we want to continue to lead this movement forward or not as a collective. And I really appreciate, like Sebastian's saying, that there's a lot of open minds here, a lot of creativity here. And that's heartening to me because that's what it's going to take. We're here this morning as part of a statewide soil health initiative that's occurring, showing and demonstrating a cover crop that's been planted here at Hawai'i Taro Farm, being rolled and crimped down. So this way it will make way for future crops. The Soil Health Initiative brings in a lot of players in the agricultural sector. And we have Bobby Paia here, who planted the cover crop and rolled and crimped it. And then we're going to have a number of different people who are associated with this today to bring this forward as a demonstration as what's possible. We're here at Hawai'i Taro Farm with farmer Bobby Paia. Aloha, Bobby.
Aloha, good morning.
Mario Gashirio.
Aloha, good morning.
Who grew the seed for this cover crop. And Bobby the Schaefer, who's the agronomist here. So what we're going to be talking about is the rolling and crimping of the cover crop and what effect that has on the soil and what we're observing from that rolling and crimping
that's been done. This is the cover crop behind me. It's tropical sun hemp that the seed Mario grew. Bob, you rolled and crimped this morning. Yep. So can you talk to us about the roller crimper? What you see is going on here with when you roll and crimp this cover crop, what actually happens to it?
Well, as you can see, it gets laid down. The crimper, the roller crimper, basically breaks a stalk in several places and lays it down.
Because of that, then the cover crop will die in place?
Cover crop will die in place.
And then the roots are left
we will not
undisturbed.
This plot of land will not be plowed never again.
So Mario, when you grew this seed, what was some of the things that you saw in the production of the seed that needed to be addressed?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit. This is a sun hemp. This is a tropic sun. It's a variety developed by Hawaii. Okay. And it's being grown by NRCS in Molokai. It's a crop that it takes a little bit of effort to harvest. As you see, there's a lot of material that you need to go through when you combine it.
It takes a lot of effort to harvest because when you combine it, because of it being very fibrous, there's a whole dance that goes on with this plant.
Right.
That's so fibrous that it can get stuck around the combine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have to look to ways to mitigate that happening. But what's beautiful, what I really like, what's happening is every 7 inches, that roller crimper crimps this crop to be able to not only lay it down, but to be able to have it to where it's organic matter on top of the soil, to where the sun's UV is not drying out the soil, is not making the soil hard, and the roots are now sloughing off in the ground. Bobby, can you talk about that?
2 things always going on with a cover crop. There's the above ground relationships and the presence of the cover crop above ground, but then below ground, the cover crop has a huge influence on soil. These are legumes. The sun hemp is a legume, and so it's fixing nitrogen from the air into its roots. This is a tap-rooted plant, fairly strong taproot, so it's going down. When we look at the backhoe pit, we'll see that the roots have went down pretty deep in this soil. So there's a contribution from the living plant to the soil while it's alive, and now there's going to be a contribution by the roots to the soil as these plants die.
Bobby, what did you find when you were planting the cover crop? How much seed did you use in this particular area? So how big of an area would you say this is?
This area is about 1/3 of an acre, little larger. This rate is normally 40 to 60 pounds per acre. I personally like to use a little higher rate, just because of one aspect that I'm using this cover crop for is a ground cover, so to suppress weeds. So that's why I like the thick matting. Yes. Also, it tends to draw more of beneficial insects.
Sun hemp, like sunflowers and like corn, has chemicals, pheromones, that they put into the air. They're evolved species, and they have these chemicals that are signaling molecules that tells the beneficial insects to come towards them. We'll take care of you. So sun hemp is a wonderful plant to draw a lot of life to the field. The cover crop has many benefits, many services it offers to the soil. Weed prevention is huge for us in farming. Whether you're conventional or whether you're organic, weed suppression is really a big deal. So here's the size of the weeds that I found underneath the cover crop. That's the size you want them. Okay? By the cover crop being expertly selected at a higher rate of seed, sown well into a well-prepared seed bed, you get quick growth. The sun hemp will outgrow weeds and suppress them to this size. Now, this weed will not put on seed. It's underneath now. It's been rolled over. It's not going to turn into a weed. So this is a really huge, quiet thing that's going on in the field here. I think Vincent has in his hand some insects. I have an insect here in my hand, and this cover crop is the reason that these life forms are here. If I grow a cover crop, insects come to it, and insects on site are born. And between those two, on 1 acre in 1 year, you might have as much as 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of insects that are brought to your site, which when they die, yield up nutrients for you that you did not buy. So the cover crop has brought you 1,500 pounds of 12% nitrogen, which most insects have about 12% nitrogen when they're decomposed.
That's huge, right?
The cover crop is offering a huge service to lower the amount of inputs you need. I'm not saying eliminate, but lower them, and thereby lowering imports that are very expensive. There's a third way, at least, that the cover crop will increase the nitrogen availability in your soil to your plants, to your subsequent crop, and that is by this phenomenon of the free living nitrogen fixers in soil being benefited from the carbon that's brought from the legume, from the grass, from the cover crop. So in three major ways, the cover crop, whether it's legume or not, is contributing to N in the soil.
You know, one of the things that really moves my spirit with the work that we're doing is that we want to keep farmers making a living at farming. We want them to have the ability to, and so if we're lowering their inputs by these protocols we're talking about, that's really a big step towards that, yeah.
If there's anything that's become apparent the last year or two to us in farming and to the public is we need sustainability.
The other reason why I like a higher amount of seed in the ground, yes, it does create a mulch. However, it also acts as an armor for all the microbiology that's happening underneath. And another thing I wanted to add was that it's great news about the cover cropping and the carbon that it fixes in conjunction with compost. What I found is that I don't have access to like a lot of compost. So what I've noticed is that what I'll do is I'll mulch my fields, and just over a period of time, that mulch basically turns into a form of compost. And I'm really excited about that. I want to share that with everybody because it's exciting, because as a farmer, I really feel good that when I go into the land and I look at the biology and the life that's in there, I got a baseline. But however, after my practices of using cover crops and using mulching, when I go back in the field and I look at the soil when I'm harvesting, you can see the life. So it's a really good feeling down deep inside that I know that when I leave a field after I'm through with my crop, the soil is better than when I first got there. Just through observation, through other farmers that are regenerative farmers also, is that they are going more diversifying what's in their fields. And I can see the difference. And I think along with this and having diversification in what you're growing on your farm, it really increases the benefits to not only the soil, but to the farmer and to all the people that consume the food.
This soil health initiative that is bringing this forward is a step that I feel we can have that kind of traction, so where people start to pay attention across the islands to see how important this is. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been really a wonderful time to share with you. So let's move on to the next piece of what this is all about. So one of the things I noticed about after the crop's been rolled and crimped is that when I pull back this biomass, that the soil is so very moist. You're talking proliferation of microbes.
As Vince says, this nice, densely planted leguminous cover crop has been laid over onto the ground. So we are in compliance with the rule in farming that says we want to keep our ground covered at all times. Now, sometimes we don't think about this, but to me, this is a habitat. There are a lot of insects that like to live underneath this mulch, this habitat that we've just created. Vincent further referred to the bacteria and fungi that are actually in the soil being benefited because the sun is not baking them and the moisture is being retained. I like the job that was done here. The farmer had to choose the right type of seed. They had to sow it at the right rate to get this effect. Then the correct tool needed to be applied. It was a roller crimper that would put nice crimps into the plant all the way along, thereby killing this plant, as we want this plant dead now, to die in place and smother any other small weeds that might try to germinate. So I'm seeing that this is nice and even. That's simple to look at and recognize. It's a little trickier to get it into that position. It takes a little bit of skill building. This was pulled off very nicely. It's very dense. It should suppress the weeds very well.
So I found this rock in the trench in the lower soil horizon here in this backhoe trench. It's about a 5-foot backhoe trench, Doug. And guess what? It's not a rock. It's really compacted soil. It looked like a rock. So I don't know any roots that would want to go through this as far as a food crop goes. There's cover crops that Bob talked about earlier that could plow through this, and that's the beauty of what a cover crop brings.
We can't see into the soil, so we have to dig a hole and look at how the horizons, the layers of the soil are arranged, and to look for compaction. Here in Maui, many places in the U.S., we have farmed upwards of 90 and 100 years on some fields. There can be compaction that happens.
You know, on the isthmus here, there's a lot of trees being planted and such. When those roots go down, unless there's a calcium saturation that actually opens up the soil, allowing the roots to go deeper, when you have big winds or when you have any kind of an issue and those roots aren't deep, not only are they not tapping into the moisture that's down below, but they're susceptible to being uprooted.
As Paia was talking earlier today, it may be the last time he tills this field. We have a need to get away from tillage because it breaks up the soil too much. It oxidizes, allows oxygen to go into the soil, and allows carbon to be left as a gas from our soils, and that is what we don't want from tillage. However, in soils like this that have developed impermeable hard pans, I need to use backhoe pits to identify the depth, and then use the proper ripping equipment to come in and break those hard pans, because it'll save years and years of trying to get roots into them. We need to have some knowledge about our soils. The rule always is know yourself, know your fields, know your crop. So by knowing my field, I need to do soil analysis, determine what I need to apply, and then make those applications to the freshly ripped field, then move towards preparing a seed bed.
So you're talking about with your soil analysis, then being able to know what minerals are available, and for plants to do their best, what you need to apply for plants to do their best?
Chemistry, if you will, for nutrients to determine what's too high. We want to stop applying those things. If I have too much of something, I don't want to apply any more. Or what's low. You can see the roots from the plant. I can see it go right down. And those roots are concentrated in the darker colored upper horizon of soil, typically what we call the A horizon. That's because most of the nutrients, most of the humus, and the better structure are in the top 1.5 or 2 feet of soil. Below that, we start to get these very low oxygen, low pH, concentrated areas of soil.
And so there's nodules that form on these roots, yeah? Could you speak about these nodules?
This is the legume that Vincent's holding. He's referring to the specialized cells on the roots where a bacterium can go inside, set up an anaerobic zone, and start to bring nitrogen that's in the air into the plant. The plant uses that nitrogen for its own benefit, so I don't have to feed it so much nitrogen. And then when these roots mineralize, when they break down and release the nitrogen in the soil, that's where we get the benefit from a legume.
We rolled and crimped this every 7 inches, this particular cover crop, so it would die in place and leave that biomass on the ground to cover the soil. What is the optimum time to be able to do that rolling and crimping?
So to roll and crimp these plants, the optimum time is when it goes into flower. You notice these are conspicuously in flower. Bobby has chosen this time because he knows that that's a peak time in the plant's physiology and its life cycle, where it has high nitrogen, lots of nutrients, and the stem on this is still succulent enough that we can crimp it and lay it down.
What happens to all these roots?
Remember that the roots have went into the soil. They've created channels. So they're creating open spots. They're creating spaces where air and water can come into the soil. The roots are exuding carbon. Liquid carbon is coming out of the roots and into the soil. And then when the root is traveling through the pore spaces, putting out its liquid carbon, it's also sloughing off cells. That's 3 ways it's giving carbon to the soil. And the 4th way that carbon is given to the soil is by when the root dies. Its entire channel is given up. And guess where the next root comes in the soil when you grow the next plant? It grows through the least path of resistance into the old root channel and runs down to where the old root stopped and starts into the next world. On these roots, this is where the microbe life is. Out in the bulk of soil, very low microbe life. And it's because the root is feeding the microbe. So by growing the cover crop plant, growing a diversity of cover crop plants over time in space. We feed bacteria, fungi, nematode, and protozoa with an excellent diet, which increases their functions. There's 7 functions that the bacteria, fungi, nematode, and protozoa produce in soil that are irreplaceable. We feed bacteria and fungi plants to enable those bacteria and fungi to improve my soil to where I can grow better crop plants for us and our animals.
Okay, so is there any questions in the chat? I don't see any. Thank you very much. Good night and go home. No. Am I live?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions, folks? Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Well, I thought maybe it's a comment, but your thoughts on that, of course, being about carbon sequestration in the soil, you know, sort of lowering the carbon footprint, but also doing what's right for the soil. I've always been taught that the plant's roots exudates or sugars, and I looked it up and it says that sugars are mostly carbon.
Right.
You know, themselves, so when they're putting out the sugars into the soil, that's really putting out carbon in the soil and sequestering the carbon. And so it has the dual, there's 2 good things that it does, right?
Absolutely. The proteins and the sugars, like what I was saying, liquid carbon. You know, it's really cool. It gives a house for the carbon to be sequestered into all those humic structures that creates. And yeah, I mean, I'm not an agronomist or a soil expert, but I do know as a farmer, this has always been beneficial in the practices of farming over the years. So it's really nice to see that that kind of articulation about what this does for the soil is there. So yeah, is there a question? Yeah, Saleh.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, with the roller crimper, so Bobby here in the video, for him to plant his Taro, what's the next step? Is he gonna go and put those in there and then build out the irrigation? How long is he gonna wait? And when is the next cycle of cover crops coming? How long does this?
Well, that's a great question. And that'd be a question for Bobby to answer as far as his management practice. But you know, when I was on the mainland, where I got this roller crimper from was on the East Coast, Rodale Institute, did the demonstration. The way they had it on their tractor, they had a 3-point hitch in the front. Bobby doesn't, he just has it on the back. But what they did, they put the roller crimper on the front, and then on the back, they had drip line, they had a disc, and they had a planter. So in one pass, they were able to not only roll and crimp, but lay the drip line, cut a line through it, and plant the seedlings into it. So Bobby talked about too, what he's doing is mulching on top of the green biomass here. So that gives him kind of like a composting in place. And with Taro, I feel like, and Ray, you would probably be able to answer this one, that you could pretty much go right in with putting huli in the soil after it's rolled and crimped and mulched like that, would you say?
Yeah, you know, I have concerns about how long the organic matter is going to last in the Hawaiian environment. Usually, you know, we see this done on the mainland in a grain crop, let's say, and that will last the entire season and still have residue in the field, you know, at the time of harvest, so that when the rains and when the snow come, it has all that, like, you know, mass on the ground that the snow would get captured into the field and then melt in place. So here in Hawaii, our metabolism is so fast that, you know, within a few months, you know, the weed suppression of the laid down crotal area is pretty compromised.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're describing kind of leads into what I was going to say too, is that the roller crimper is pretty essential for getting it down and just the right orientation and to kill the crop, because when crotalaria seeds in the field, it's a bad weed.
Right.
It's in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
And then to be able to do that operation out the back end of the tractor, like you're saying, pretty essential. I
Yeah,
think.
one pass, you know, that, and one of the things that, one of the strategies that we thought about with our initiative is to have equipment, you know, write a grant where we can have equipment on each island that could go from farm to farm. The farmer just puts up the land, we put in this demonstration. The farmer gets to observe what's going on with his own practice and this, and see how possibly this could be a transition point for him. There's all kinds of possibilities, I guess, you know, and just so folks know out there, soil health isn't just about cover crops. You know, there's all kinds of other management practices. We heard about it this weekend with IMOs, using of IMOs and bokashi and compost. And we just need to bring all this to the forefront, yeah, and be able to have these management systems available for our farmers to be able to tap into, so our farmers can do their job at farming and leave their soils in a resilient way to be able to come back in and plant again, grow again. Drake, is there anything you want to talk about in this respect? And Cab, anything you want to add?
Well, just my thought on it is that when you're roller crimping, you're breaking the plant material up in a way that it really provides sustainable homes for the microbes. Versus if you go in and you mow it and you cut it into these smaller pieces, the breakdown is so much faster. And
Right.
You're breaking it down versus this way, it's still attached. It's still sucking and having this relationship with the moisture in the soil through the roots and all this. And so I find that by, you know, doing this roller crimping, this, even just if you don't have a roller crimper, I was talking with Kat earlier about just walking and smashing the grass down with my feet around my plants. Versus if I come in and I weed whack, then the grass shoots right back up and it disappears instantly. But when I step on my grass, I'm starting to build that biomass. So, so in those types of things, in terms of soil health, microbial abundance, like this roller crimping technology is like another level of goodness.
And you know, it was the Amish farmer that made the crimper. And if you notice it was in a chevron design, it was in a V design. So that he made that specifically instead of straight across, because when you roll it down, it doesn't pull up the cover crop. It doesn't grab it. It just lays it down and crimps it. So I am on low battery mode. If my battery runs out, you'll be on. Okay, good. Kat?
I was going to say that it's so important having that root system in the ground. That's where, you know, we really need all that fermentation and that soil building to really occur. The top layer provides that skin that we're looking for.
Right.
But all those roots that are going to break down underneath, like right now, that's like fresh food. It's fresh fertilizer for that taro or whatever is going in the ground after or with it. So it's so important to really have that not disturbed, you know, in the ground. We don't till it in necessarily. We're just going to leave that skin on top and allow that digestion downstairs to occur. We can also excite that digestion. We talked about spraying the field, maybe put a rig on there so you're injecting a little bit onto that as you're crimping at the same time. So we really get that stimulation going of the microactivity, and now you can have, you know, best crop result.
Now, back in 2017, we were at Kahumama for our convention, and there was a polyculture cover crop, several different cover crops planted that Christian planted, and when he harvested, you want to talk about that, Christian? What you found?
Yeah, so that field was one of the first. We've just broken ground on it recently, and the first thing we did was put the polyculture on the field. It was about a 1 acre plot. It was a mix of buckwheat, Sudan, sun hemp, some pigeon, not pigeon, lab. And then after we incorporated it, let us progress, we planted carrots in that field, and we got a really amazing yield, which sort of emphasizes the importance and like how much goodness can come out of one product.
Well, Bobby, perfect timing. There's a question asked. There's a question asked, Bobby, about your management practice. Come to the table over here, sir. About after we rolling crimp that field, because we just got done showing the video on it. After we rolling crimped the field, what did you do? How long did you wait until you planted the taro in that field? Did you mulch on the biomass of the rolled and crimped cover crop that we just did? Yeah.
We actually didn't plant it.
Didn't plant it yet, okay. So how long do you are you mulching on top of it?
Different irrigation system, so.
Oh, okay.
No, we're gonna do what you suggested, we're gonna use the calcium. But the cover crop kind of died already, but the root structure is still there,
Right.
you know, so we're basically gonna just run T-tape, soften up the ground. Go with, and start making some holes.
Punch it in. Yeah, that's great.
There was some guys did that, it worked pretty good.
Yeah, good. Well, this is, we're on the tail end. We just showed the video of the Soil Health Initiative and we just want to, let folks know, once you come here, Bobby, so people can see you. It's almost running out of battery here. Oh, okay, we got a couple questions. Okay, let me see here.
I saw the one about the native cover crop.
So-
Yeah, there's a question, is there any other native cover crop other than uala in the chat?
I'm experimenting with some pohinahina in orchard systems. No, it's very drought tolerant, it spreads really quick, it has flowers, so it's beneficial for the insects. And it can take a lot of impact and it bounces back really quickly. You can like weed whack it and it'll grow right back.
Right?
Bobby, how long do you think like a crimped lay down at that density of crowdal area would suppress weeds for your crop?
Not long.
Right, like you throw a number, 1 month, 2 months.
1 month. Depends.
So,
But then the weeding detail
right,
is
but
now you're into hand weeding.
so the point, there's a couple of things here. Bobby has access to a lot of mulch, is number one. Number two, I just don't want to see that one cover crop down. I want to see go with the roller crimper and then seed another cover crop. I want to see the biomass built up on numerous cover crops in the area. So we can see what it's just supporting the farmer's ability to hold that field like that, right?
More the merrier.
Yeah.
So more cover crop is good.
Do you have a drill, the seed drill?
No, I just do like on half acre plots, I just really work. And then just like.
So we
this of it is not too good, so just wait.
Break them in. So we could get access to a seed drill.
Yeah.
So let's see, when it comes time to harvest taro, it needs to dry out from my understanding, how to deal with the water drainage in such a flat field.
Is there somebody asking a question?
Yeah. How do you deal
Talk
with,
about the cover crop.
so there's, when it comes to time to harvest, taro needs to dry out from this person's understanding, how to deal with water drainage in such a flat field. So in essence, what we were talking about, right, is the whole adding more organic matter to where you're not gonna have city water, right?
Right. It depends on it's unique in every
Yeah.
incident, right? Because it depends on your soil structure there. Like, if you use
Right.
hay soils, well, maybe more retentive, right? Versus the type of soil, and like what Bob Schaefer was pointing out, right? When he was talking about the ditch, at the profile.
Right.
Right? And the deal is, it's like I told him, well, Bob, this field over here, nothing that kind,
So-
nothing plowing no more. And he said, oh, good. But, remember what he said about the rip pump,
Yeah,
right? Why? Because we gotta get oxygen and water down there
right.
to really expedite the process. I
That's
mean,
right.
cover cropping and cover more and mulch and all that is good. But I mean, if you own land that was corporately farmed for 144 years, monocropping pineapple and sugarcane, it's gonna take you gotta expedite the process.
Mhm.
So like, in my practices, guarantee I'm gonna rip my fields.
And especially if you're planting trees, that you want the roots to go down
Trees,
deep.
area,
Yeah, right.
because it's just not.
Just as
Across the board.
the pioneer treatment, you got 120 years of hard pan. That you gotta like come in there, just get it a fresh start and then begin the no-till process.
Yeah, because you can see them in, when we had the ditch, you can see the color of the soil. You see, like, over the years, the organic breakdown, and then when we finally no hill, like, never nothing. Even the color of the soil changed.
Right.
So the biology that happens over a period of time really does have an impact overall on I can see now, but the buffalo in the Great Plains.
Yeah.
How that would work.
How they did it. Well, there's one more question, and we have to close out because we're gonna take our leaders up to some of the farms that we just saw videos of this past few days. The previous and other presentations offered by HFUU about the importance of soil health, and more importantly, the solutions and methods offered to improve soil health is achievable for Hawaii. Can HFUU define soil as part of Hawaii's infrastructure that needs to recover from the monocropping of the recent past? Absolutely, Sharon. And if HFUU can justify the soil as infrastructure, then there's funding via the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So we'll look into that, and thank you so much. And we're working with NRCS in the Soil Health Initiative because, and all the other people at the table, because we've been told by the private sector after we got this going that this is what they like to fund. They'd like to see the agricultural sector as a whole working together toward in one direction that will benefit Hawaii agriculture. So with that, where can you buy or roll that? Where can you rent or buy that roller crimper? If you're on Maui, get in touch with me if you need it. I can lend it to you. But basically, it came from the East Coast, and we can bring more in. It's just equipment that would be needed. I've seen ones that were 30 feet wide. They're 10 feet, and then they had two on hinges that lifted up that you could transport them to another part of the field. So it could be done. This was a 6-foot roller crimper, and so that was I&J in the East Coast was the name of that company in Pennsylvania. So with that, we have to go. This has been a wonderful 3 days with you folks. Thank you so much. Thank you to the leadership of HFUU and also all of our sponsors. You see on the virtual screen here, please, if you see any of these people that are sponsors, please mahalo them for supporting HFUU. And thank you all for being here today. You guys rock. We'll keep growing food for you. Aloha.